And now it's time to finish up the month and close the store. But before we close the store, we've got one last section, and it's a new section of the show, and we're calling it Second Time Lucky.
Who would want to do that? Sequels suck. No, come on, man. Oh, please. By definition alone, they're inferior films.
It's bullshit generalization. Many sequels have surpassed their original.
Oh, yeah?
Name one.
Yeah.
T2.
You've got a hard-on for Cameron.
So we're ending this month's episode with this new feature, Second Time Lucky, where we take a look at sequels that are arguably better than the original film. And obviously that's just our opinion, man. But first off, we are choosing Jaws 2. That's right. No, we're not. Don't worry. Just kidding. We're not. We're starting off with James Cameron's Terminator 2: Judgment Day.
Same make.
These were taken at the West Highland Police Station, 1984. You were there.
Same model.
These were taken today.
You have to let me see my son. He's in great danger.
New mission. Once, he was programmed to destroy the future.
You don't know what it's like to try to kill one of these things.
Now, his mission
Get down.
is to protect it.
Come with me if you want to live.
You're really real.
His loyalty is to a child,
Who sent you?
You did. 35 years from now.
and his enemy
He's a Terminator like you, right?
Not like me.
is the deadliest machine ever built.
Can it be destroyed?
Unknown.
This time, there are two. Terminator 2.
You just can't go around killing people.
Why?
If you thought you had seen it all, look again.
Stay down!
Go! Now!
We gotta stick together.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Terminator 2, Judgment Day. This time, he's back. For good.
Trust me.
So we'll give a little bit of background on the movie, and then we'll sort of talk about it. So Jim Cameron's original 1984 movie had been a massive success, but the chances of a sequel was slim due to rights issues. And to be honest, that's pretty much plagued the Terminator franchise ever since. There's been so many issues with the rights to the Terminator being swapping between companies, and it's been sort of a real pain. But at this point, the company Hemdale owned 50% of the rights, and Cameron's ex-wife Gail Ann Hurd had the other 50%. So it took Mario Kassar and his big checkbook to sort out the rights issue. So basically, he just got out his checkbook, wrote some massive checks, and obtained the rights to the story. So once he had the rights, he called James Cameron straight away. And Cameron was hesitant at first, as he was working on other projects at the time, and he didn't have any idea of a story. Then Kassar basically said to Cameron, "Yeah, mate, I'll give you $6 million to direct," and he immediately accepted. So Cameron brought on William Wisher to help with the story and script, and they soon got it together. And Cameron said that the final version of the script is 99% his dialogue, but the story is credited to him and Wisher. And Cameron had lunch with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was quite reluctant, as he didn't want to play a good guy Terminator that didn't kill anybody. And Arnie was quoted as saying, "I turn into Bambi." And he was worried that his returning Terminator wouldn't be badass. And Cameron showed him the script and convinced him to take the part. And Cameron was also worried that if he didn't get Linda Hamilton back as Sarah Connor, he would have to rewrite a substantial part of the film, as he said there was no way he was going to recast the part. Hamilton did agree, but she sort of did it under the condition where she didn't want to play sort of the waitress, helpless part, the part of the helpless waitress from the first movie. And she suggested to Cameron that she wanted Sarah Connor to be a little bit crazy. The transformation of Sarah Connor between these two movies is a sight to behold, man. And Linda Hamilton looks fucking incredible. And I think Linda Hamilton is incredible in this film, but we'll talk about that when we get there in a minute. So there was two major pieces of casting were left. So it's the T-1000 Terminator and John Connor. And the whole movie hangs on the 10-year-old John Connor, the character of John Connor, the future leader of the Resistance. And so Cameron said that the scariest piece of casting was John Connor, as the film is his story. It revolves completely around him. And they auditioned hundreds of kids, but Cameron was not happy as they all seemed to be kids from cereal commercials. And that's what Cameron said in inverted commas. They all came from cereal commercials. Casting director Mally Finn saw Edward Furlong just out and about and gave him her number. Furlong called and they had a number of auditions, and some of these went really, really badly, and it got to the point where Cameron came close to just rejecting him outright. However, Cameron did see something in Edward Furlong, and Mally Finn worked hard with Furlong to nail the auditions. And he had a number of auditions with his screen mum, Linda Hamilton, and it was one of those which really clinched the part for him. So it's the scene, they did the audition, they did the scene where Sarah's just escaped from the mental hospital with the help of John Connor and the Terminator. And there's a scene in the car where she sort of goes to, it looks like she's going to give him a hug, but she's not. She's checking to make sure he's not been injured and making sure he's not been shot. And like John's really upset at that because he thinks he's getting a bit of sort of affection from his mom, but he's not. She's sort of the the badass sort of military leader, who doesn't want to, who's just checking him for injury rather than showing him any affection. And it was that scene which clinched the role for Furlong. So that left the T-1000, who's like the nemesis of the movie, the sleek and slimline T-1000. So Robert Patrick was cast as the T-1000, and he went for the audition and he just stayed in character the entire time, and he scared the shit out of his agent and the casting team. And I think Robert Patrick is fantastic in this film. Arnie is such a big, bulky bastard. He's like the equivalent of a tank, where the T-1000 is the equivalent of a Porsche. He's just so sort of slim and sleek. And one thing I've noticed about, I've only noticed it about Patrick's performance when I recently rewatched the film, and it's just the way he moves. And there's the scenes where he seems to be touching everything around him. Like there's a scene where he goes into the Dyson household. And he's just sort of, it's as if he's using his fingers to sense all his surroundings. If you watch it again, just look out for it. It's such a great performance. And the one thing as well that I always thought was enhanced in the movie, sort of with CGI or effects, is the speed at which Robert Patrick runs. So there's a couple of scenes where, the T-1000 is basically running after John while he's on his dirt bike, or he's chasing after the Terminator and Sarah and John in the police car after they escape from the mental hospital. And Robert Patrick really does run that fast. He can run super fast. Fuck knows why he didn't try out for the Olympics or anything. He'd probably have shitloads of gold medals. But the scene in the shopping centre as John's escaping on his dirt bike and the T-1000 chases him, they had to shoot it a couple of times because on the first attempt, Robert Patrick caught up with him. He actually caught up with Edward Furlong while he was on his bike. So they had to do another take. So the movie had quite a tight schedule, so tight that the first assistant director quit before the film started. They were really up against it in terms of timing. And Schwarzenegger was quoted as saying that once a Jim Cameron movie starts, he changes into a different person. And Arnie said, "Don't get in his fucking way." So there's a bit of background for you. So let's talk about Terminator 2. Ben, when did you first see Terminator 2, and what are your favourite scenes from it, mate?
I saw this at the pictures live at the pictures when it first came out. I was so taken with it. I actually saw it twice, and I actually went from the Odeon in Middlesbrough to the Regent in Redgate to the bigger screen because I wanted to experience it in that scope, just purely for the opening scene. I mean, going back though, when it was first announced, I recall being completely bemused by the idea of it because to me it was finished. There was a sense of enormous satisfaction at the end of the first Terminator movie that all the pieces were tied up, and it was done. Do you know that it was great? The brilliant story arc complete. The revelation that Reese was John Connor's father was fucking brilliant. Maybe it's because I was young and naive that you'd think maybe if I was an adult, maybe I'd see it coming. I probably wouldn't. I just thought it was great. But I seem to recall that Billy Idol had been cast quite early on as a Terminator. I thought, oh God, it's going to go, it's going to be shit. And maybe mates were sort of discussing how they would do it, how they would make it, because in the present arc, it's finished, it's over and done with. And we just said, well, surely it'll be a prequel. It'll be based on Reese, and it'll finish with him going back in time, following the Terminator to stop it killing. And that's how I thought to do it. But from the get go, Jim Cameron knew exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted the software to be able to do it, and he wasn't going to make it till he had that. And it's kudos to him, really, that the film's as good as it is. Is it better than the original? It's a tough call because I always find them completely different films.
Yeah.
Like you've just saying there, the transition from Arnie's. I mean, it's really weird because they are actually completely different. The machines aren't. They're completely different machines, so to speak. If you'll forgive me for being like that, been a bit pedantic. But you're right. We get a sense of absolute threat and danger from Terminator. When he does dispatch the thugs, Bill Paxton, and rips out the spines, it's horrendous. He used this unstoppable force, like Reese explains to her, you can't be bargained with, you can't be reasoned with, and he absolutely will not stop until you're dead. And it was just chilling. I thought it was really, really unnerving, Terminator, and I found it was more of a science fiction stalk and slash movie. And it's got a really small cast, doesn't it? And I know it was quite low budget anyway. I think it's 6.4 million. And it took 78 million. That was probably the cost of fucking lunch on Terminator 2. But that's not to knock Terminator 2. That's just saying the whole scale of it is completely upscaled. It's fantastic. So everything is bigger. The budget is an eye-watering $94 to $102 million. That's incredible for the time it was made. And it sets its stall out really early that you get this beautiful sunny day in Los Angeles in a playground. And so there's a blinding flash. And the special effects here are absolutely mind-boggling. It's just mind-boggling where you see the shockwave wiping out buildings, turning over cars, and then the horrendous scene of Sarah Connor. It's T2 Sarah Connor trying to talk to T1 Sarah Connor and trying to warn her, and it's really good. And she explodes. She's completely evaporates, completely vaporized, by the nuclear blast, and it really, really sets its stall out. It's fucking great. And I think, is it the voiceover at the beginning of Terminator 2 that explains it? Skynet sent 2 Terminators back, which I always found, that always makes me cringe a little bit. Just, fuck. It's just, just to sort of, let's just get it over and done with. Look, it sent 2 Terminators back, just in case the first one fucked up as like an insurance policy. Which I thought would have been, you're just better off just leaving it and just hinting it. It sent multiple Terminators back on multiple timelines because, maybe everyone wasn't up with the string theory as much as they are now, because I'm very much into string theory, guys. I read books and everything. Some of the books I read don't have pictures. Not many, but some
Jesus.
do.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
so
what I am.
Grown
Yeah.
up.
But what I like about Terminator 2 is the believability. It goes completely different. That John Connor is a totally messed up juvenile, purely down to his mum, who's a messed up adult because of the things that happened in Terminator. And when we leave her at the end of Terminator, she's heavily pregnant, driving off towards a storm cloud, which in the back of your mind you assume is the nuclear war, but it obviously can't be. But that's what you always assume when I watched it. And now when you reach Terminator 2, she's now this sort of battle-hardened mercenary gun runner who'd gone all out to train John to make him prepared for Armageddon or Judgment Day when it did actually happen. And it's really believable. So you've got the one side is this juvenile John Connor who's it's a right tearaway who's got some smarts that he's learned off his mum. There's a great scene where he's using a computer to bypass a cash machine to nick money, and that's something he's learned off his mum. He can strip machine guns if he wanted to. I think he sort of makes that known. And he sort of tells his mate that, where'd you learn this stuff from? Well, I learned it off my mum. She would teach me this. She thought I was going to be this great military leader. So she's locked up in the thing. She's a total loser.
Yeah.
It's completely disses her. But then you get this great sequence. You're right with Arnie arriving. I never really thought about it like that, but I think you're absolutely right. I think Arnie was probably right to be a bit reserved about taking a role again because it is completely different.
Yeah.
But I wonder if he said to him, it's a different machine, but you're right, it is completely torn down. It's almost like comedic, where he just nicks the guy's sunglasses. and just throws him onto a hot stove. It's a bit
Yeah.
tame in comparison to Terminator.
It's like
but
when you compare it to the first movie, like when the Terminator arrives and you got Bill Paxton and those punks, he just fucking, there's no mercy. He just rips out their spinal cords and their stomachs, and just there's shots of his fist going into like people's chest cavities and shit. So he's like, he's a Terminator. He's there to kill people. But even in this opening scene here with "I want your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle," it's a funny scene, but he doesn't kill anybody. He just commits grievous GBH, really. So it's immediately toned down, and and then like the "Bad to the Bone" song doesn't really help either. It just seems to be a bit more light of touch. I mean, it's a great scene. I love it, but it's just you can sound it kind of sets its stall out quite early already that it's not going to be quite as violent as the first movie. So it's an interesting choice, I thought.
Yeah, but you touched on again about the great casting of Robert Patrick as the T-1000, because it is absolutely inspired that if Arnold Schwarzenegger's an early model, and he's got to be like you said, like he's got to be an old Ford Escort, to the T-1000's Porsche. It's got to be sleeker, it's got to be slimmed down, it's got to be better, and the special effects in this still stand up now. They're absolutely brilliant,
incredible.
And again, it's a great piece of imagination that this thing's. It's not just, again, it could be so easy to go down a little shitty route where it was another Terminator and all it could do was just a Terminator. It was just stronger. That was it. But it takes a lot of imagination for it to come up with it. It can meld into other steel. It can meld into shape. It can change. It can make stabbing weapons. It's its main weapon, isn't it? It can do that.
Obviously, and stabbing weapons.
It's almost invincible. That's it, yeah. So it can do that, and it's really good. Which there's some great scenes, very believable, where it morphs into John's stepmother, and it happens off camera, but it's such a great reveal. Where obviously the dogs can sense Terminators, and it's going apeshit while she's on the phone to John, and Arnie's Terminator realizes what's going on and asks about Wolfie. What's the dog's name? She's not the dog's name. But as the camera pulls back, it turns out that John Connor's stepmom has been taken off, been killed, and T2 is now morphed into her. And as it pulls back, her arms turned into a fucking sword to stab his stepdad through a pint of, through a
carton of milk.
A milk carton into his throat and pinned into the kitchen cabinet. And I thought, that's just incredible.
Yeah.
It looks so great. And you don't actually see it happen. You just see it off camera, but it's totally believable. All these touches throughout the film are really good. And he did it again, Cameron, where I think when he took on Alien, we've already discussed Aliens in one of the previous ones about kind of the specials, because it's such a great sequel to it. It's completely different to the original. And he does it again, although this time it's his own baby, and he does it again. But he does it so well. He's sort of taken what Spielberg used to call sequels are a cheap carny trick. It's in some ways it's true, but this expands on it so much better. You get to see so much more into it. Schwarzenegger's role is great. I can appreciate he didn't want to do it again because he would think there's nothing more to do. But I think his humour comes a lot. There's no humour at all in Terminator. It's very. I don't recall laughing
apart from
very much.
"Fuck you, asshole." I always laughed at that.
Fuck you, ass.
Yeah.
Fuck you, asshole.
Fuck you, asshole.
Yeah. Maybe it's the rubbery head when he's trying to change his eye. It's blatantly.
Some of the effects are a bit laughable now,
It's a bit laughable now, Fucking hell, in comparison to the T2, But it's incredible, and it wouldn't work without that scope, He was right not to go ahead with it until he's come up with this idea, and it's just a fucking great idea.
It is.
It leaves you breathless, Terminator 2. It's an epic feel to the movie, and it's absolutely fantastic. Now I'm struggling to start my original argument where I said, is it better than T1? Oh, no, I don't know. No, I'm thinking, I don't know. I'm struggling. I'm falling down the side of T2 because it's so enjoyable, It's great.
Well, that's the whole point of this section. It's second time lucky where we say the sequel's better than the original, but it is a close thing, I think. But I just want to talk about, I alluded to it earlier, but I want to talk about Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor. So, and a couple of my sort of favourite scenes with Sarah Connor. I mean, she's just like, you've already said, that John Connor dissed her and says, she's a complete loser and a complete psycho, and she's sort of locked up at the Pescadero psychiatric hospital. And her introduction is brilliant. So you've got Dr. Silberman, who's returned from the first movie, who's like who's Sarah's shrink. He's the cop who interviews her interviews Reese in the first movie, and he's Sarah's, like I say, Sarah's shrink at this hospital. And there's like an introductory scene where he's talking to a lot of the other shrinks at the hospital and introducing who Sarah is, and it gives a little bit of exposition about the first movie and what happened in the first movie. But it kind of cuts between that and Sarah sort of doing chin-ups in her cell. And you just see immediately that this isn't the Sarah that we left at the end of the first Terminator movie. This is like, as you said, Ben, she's this badass fucking gun-running mercenary, and she's got, she's muscly and she's pumped up, and her physical transformation is incredible. And you can just tell straight away that this is not Sarah Connor from the first movie. Sorry, I'm going to be dropping lots of bad Arnie impressions throughout this section, but, I think Linda Hamilton's performance is incredible. I hadn't seen T2 for a number of years before I watched it again for the pod, and I'd kind of forgotten how good she is. Like there's a couple of real key scenes, and the first one is where we watch a recording of one of her sort of sessions with Dr. Silberman, where she's talking about Judgment Day, and she's talking about the recurring nightmare she has about the nuclear war, which is the sequence we see a bit further on in the movie, which just absolutely blows you away. But it's just her performance, how she describes it. It's, oh my God, it is, this woman is sort of carrying around the knowledge of Armageddon, and she knows the date it's going to happen. And just having this knowledge has made her crazy, and the burden she has of raising her son, who's going to be this military leader and is basically going to save humanity. It's a massive burden, and it just weighs on her so much. And that's, as I say, that scene where she talks about what she sees in the dream when the blast wave hits, and children just get blown away like burned paper, and how she erupts in a rage and saying, everything you see is gone, and she's brilliant. It's an absolutely phenomenal performance from her. I mean, there's a terrible line of dialogue about anyone not wearing Factor 1000 sunblocks going to have a real bad day. Get it? That's a pretty bad line, but her performance there is brilliant. And then she's brilliant throughout the whole movie, but then there's a scene later on in the film where she's learned from Arnie, it's Miles Bennett Dyson, who's the man who's primarily responsible for the creation of Skynet and the rise of the machines. And that's a really clever thing as well that I forgot, is that it's all happens because of the first Terminator movie. So the arm that's left from the first Terminator and the sort of, there's the CPU, like half of the CPU chip from the first Terminator was recovered from the end of the first movie. And this is what has prompted Cyberdyne Systems into, creating this revolutionary new technology. It's all because of that. But yeah, as I say, she learns that it's Miles Bennett Dyson, and she decides that she's going to kill him. She takes off on her own as an assassin one night to just basically kill this man who's responsible for everything, pretty much. And it gets foiled, basically. Arnie and John kind of show up and save the day, but it's when Sarah Connor goes into the house to finish the job and to kill him, and she's already shot Dyson, who's kind of lying on the floor, and it's heartbreaking. Like, his wife and his kid basically form a shield to come between Sarah and Dyson. And it's just Sarah, like, at first she's so determined. She's like, I'm not going to let you do it. And she's like pointing the gun, but then she just realizes she can't do it. And then she just kind of collapses numb onto the wall and slides down the wall and sobbing. And it's just, such a fantastic performance from Linda Hamilton. She's great. She's absolutely brilliant. And I sometimes think that that can get a bit overlooked with all the special effects and the technology. And I just wanted to point out how great she was. And I'll just talk about one of my favorite sort of sequences from the movie, and it's the escape sequence from the Pescadero psychiatric hospital. It's fantastic. It's like so Arnie and John go together because they realize that the T-1000 it might go there to try and kill her. But I love the fact that pretty much 90% of the escape's already done. Sarah's already done it herself because she's such a badass. You know, she manages to, escape from the hospital. You know, she's pretty much there. She's pretty much nailed it. And it's only sort of towards the end where it's when she runs towards the lifts, and then Arnie steps out the lift in slow motion, and the music, like the score plays. It's fantastic, and it's a look of horror on her face as she kind of falls to the floor and just watches in horror as the Terminator steps out of the lift, and she just basically loses her shits herself and runs back the other way. It's so good, but everything building up to that sequence with the T-1000 sort of stalking the corridors of the hospital, and the film uses good use of twins here. So there's those twins from Good Morning Vietnam that plays like the security guard and the T-1000 who's copying the security guard. It's so clever, you know, and it's so. It's so well done, like what the T-1000 does. So when he copies the security guard and he just basically, what does he do? He uses his finger, doesn't he? And he just basically shoots this like big long knife through the guy's eye. It's horrible, but it's so it's so well done. And talking about movie twins, like I didn't realize this, but Lyndall Hamilton has a twin sister called Leslie, and that's who she's used a couple of times. She's used in the nightmare sequence where you've said that. You know, the T2 Sarah is trying to tell the T-1000, the T1 Sarah, trying to warn her of the nuclear war. And then there's also a scene towards the end of the movie where the T-1000 is copying Sarah Connor, and they used Linda Hamilton's twin sister for that scene as well. But yeah, there's some of my. I just wanted to talk about Linda Hamilton because I think she's, I think she's so good. But what else? What are some of your favourite scenes from the movie, mate?
Well, I always thought that the strongest part of the movie was the bit you were just talking about there, about the attack on Dyson, which I always thought was brilliant. And I think it sort of takes the film in a completely different direction that you're not really expecting at all. And even as you're watching it, and you've sort of got the time travel thing, because it's not Back to the Future time travel head farty thing. You know, it's as bad as it could be.
Doesn't give you a headache.
It sort of doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't sort of divulge into that much. So you never sat there thinking about it too much. But it's just a great sort of goes off on a tangent where she disappears, and I find out that she's wrote fate on. She's carved it into a picnic table, and then John Connor realizes it's from a quote that his dad said that time is not set, or the future's not set. It's made by us, and his mum's twigged it. She can stop it, and it goes off in this great arc where they find the guy who's actually responsible for the creation of Skynet. You think, yeah, kill him. It's all over. It's done. You think, but you're right. What actually comes of it is that she's not a Terminator. And it's the difference between the Terminator and humanity, that we've got morals, and she can't do it. She can't kill this family guy as easy as that. She thought she could do. But it's the revelation where he sat and and he cuts his arm open and peels the skin back to show.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he's absolutely fantastic. It is so brilliantly done. Such a brilliantly realised shot. It still stands up to this day. It's very cringy, you know, because it's so like it makes you wince. But then there's that guy who's now realised it. Holy shit! I'm responsible for basically destroying mankind, or nearly destroying mankind, and killing millions of people. But I think that's just a great and brave tangent to take it on, which it leads us back to the battle in the Cyberdyne systems where they go there to destroy the chip, and Dyson is now convinced, you know, that it's all true, and he goes with them to help them get it and destroy it. And that's where, because the Terminator, the T-1000 has now been off screen for maybe about 25 minutes, I think, and we haven't seen it. And its reappearance is absolutely fantastic. And again, kudos to Jim Cameron for only making a film if the technology was there to realise his vision. And this is where it pays off in the helicopter scene. Took me a couple of times to watch it. The helicopter, he goes on a motorbike, the T-1000. He's disguised as a motorcycle cop. Deliberately hurtles himself towards the helicopter, headbutts the screen, then just pours himself, liquefies himself into the seat, and it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But it took me a couple of viewings to realise it. He's actually got three hands. in the helicopter. He's got one on the controls, one doing something else. I think the other one is holding a gun. It's like, oh my God.
Really? I've never noticed that.
That's fantastic.
Oh, wow.
It's made a thing. I thought it was a fault. I thought it was a genuine goof.
Yeah.
And then I realised it's not. Of course, he's liquid metal. He can create as many limbs as he wants to.
Yeah.
I think he's got 3 hands, and it's like, oh my God, that's fucking brilliant. So that leads into that great shootout. Where we see obviously the demise of Dyson, where they've rigged the whole Cyber-9 systems to explode. And then I think maybe it's the only weakness, I think, with Terminator 2 is it had a very similar ending to Terminator, which obviously takes place, again, in a sort of factory setting.
Yeah.
But what can you do? There were some great touches. I particularly like the T2 to T1000 starts to fuck up because it's taking so much shit.
It starts to get a bit glitchy.
So many bullets. It does, and it's brilliant, isn't it? When it's melted and coming back together, and it can't do it all properly, and if the feet aren't working properly, something like that, and it's one of the bits of metal doesn't come into it, or doesn't blend itself back in, something like that. But I thought, oh my God, this is really good. It's so like realistic, and he's sort of covering all the bases of, it's a machine. It's not an invincible machine. That's like Arnie. It's a machine. Like Arnie's Terminator says, it doesn't feel pain, but it sort of does the equivalent of what we would call pain. And like pain registers to a Terminator because eventually it will fail. It can be defeated, just hard to do it because it's a Terminator. And you get the feeling with the T1000, it's starting to fuck up. It's now on the end game. But yeah, interesting ending. It's really well done with, like you said, the use of the twins for Linda Hamilton and her sister, Linda Ronstadt Hamilton, who stood in for it. I think, is she the one furthest away or something, isn't she? That did something really clever. But yeah, it's good. And it's the nerd in me watching the end of it where obviously they destroy the T-1000. It's fantastic the way it's done.
Oh, it's incredible.
And it falls into molten lava, and everything or every person that is imitated sort of erupts out of the lava. It's melting, and it's really good. It's really, really brilliantly executed.
Yeah, you see everything it's ever imitated sort of erupting from the molten steel, but then it's how like the final shot of it, it's as if it's screaming, and like the way that the face just kind of folds in on itself in the steel before it disappears. It's fucking brilliant. It's so freaky. It's so brilliant. But anyway, sorry, mate. Go back to what you're going to say. Sorry.
It does. No, you're right. You're absolutely bang on. Yeah, it does sort of stay with you. And again, it's such a brilliant executed shot, isn't it? And obviously done with CGI. Obviously, early days CGI, but it looks better than a lot of CGI that's done now. So many years later, that now looks terrible. They've gone backwards. But yeah, and then you get the ending with Arnie realizing that they would have to destroy him as well because he's also got the chip. And it's like slightly, now I know why you cry.
It's a bit cheesy.
I remember sat there thinking, there's going to be a Terminator 3 because, and this is the nerd in me, guys, I'm sorry, they destroy Arnie and John Connor's still alive. Well, he wouldn't be alive, would he? Because they destroyed the Terminator and that's it. They've destroyed it and destroyed the future. Cal Reese couldn't have come back, impregnated. Yeah, I could go on.
Yeah. That's the problem with time travel movies, isn't it? You could get yourself wrapped up in fucking knots about it. You really.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a good point, actually.
Yeah, but awesome.
Yeah, if it was like Back to the Future,
but again,
John would just vanish, wouldn't he? He'd just vanish and he'd just vanish in front of Sarah's eyes. Like, oh shit, there we go. Anyway.
You should have had a photograph, like a photograph of the three of them, and then one was just like, oh no, like Back to the Future. Yeah. But again, like with Aliens, excess footage, I think Terminator 2 was one of the first special editions I ever watched. Or certainly one of the first ones I watched with deleted scenes, and I think was a goodie at it at college. I did it on Laserdisc, or it's made on a Laserdisc.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And we were watching the outtakes with the Dream with where Michael Biehn makes an appearance as Kyle Reese, where he's talking to Sarah Connor while she's in the asylum.
Yeah,
and the bit was at the end where she's in the park, and am I right in thinking is she's waiting for John outside Congress, and she's watching the boy playing, and it's sort of hinted that the boy is Kyle Reese.
Yes, that's right.
And it's like,
yeah.
I thought that was
the original ending. That was the original ending.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's such an excess of footage. Like the amount of imagination that's gone into the movie, like little things that are then cut. And probably not for pacing reasons. Probably we talked before where I didn't realize that you obviously have to pay per foot of film, and that's one of the most expensive parts of making a film is actually the film stock itself. When you print it, and you can save a lot of money, which you had to do with Aliens. You had to just chop it down to save, and it saves like a few million quid. And again, it could have been just for that reason because I can't see it damaging the film in any way.
No.
I mean, we look what happened to Aliens. We said when now Aliens, the special is now like the de facto version of
that's
Aliens.
the cut you're always going to go to.
Prefer to watch that. Yeah,
I just think I was just going to talk about that. You talk about the deleted scenes. There's a real sort of key deleted scene, which I think they should have put back in because it makes some of the film makes a bit more sense. So, that John asks the Terminator, why do you have to be such a douche all the time? It's like the way he talks and stuff. And there's a scene where they've just escaped from the hospital and they're sort of hiding out in a service station. And this is where they're sort of taking the bullets out of Arnie. And it's clear that Sarah is really still quite hostile towards the Terminator, as you would be after all the shit you've been through. And, they're pulling the bullets out of Arnie's back. And, they ask, can he, basically, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but they ask if he can learn. And he sort of says, well, I have a CPU. It is a learning computer, but it isn't, it's sort of switched off. The learning part of his CPU isn't on. So they sort of agree to turn the Terminator off, take the CPU out of his head and activate the learning chip and then put it back in. And they sort of do it at first the Terminator's reluctant to do it, but they remove the chip, flick the switch or whatever it is they have to do. But then Sarah goes to destroy the CPU because she feels, obviously she's got all this pent up hostility and fear about the Terminator after what happened to her in the first movie. And she sort of tries to convince John and say, look, we don't need him. We can do this ourselves. And she goes to destroy the chip, but John convinces her not to do it. And then they put the chip back into him. And then the next morning, when they're trying to steal a truck, and Arnie goes to hotwire the truck, and then John just pulls down the sun visor, and the keys are hanging off the sun visor, and he says to Arnie, "Are we learning yet?" That kind of links into that. So, yeah. I think they could have left that scene in. To be honest, makes it's only a small nitpick, but I just thought that was quite an interesting scene, really. So, yeah.
It is, yeah. It is. It's. Isn't there a scene in the same thing where they shoot him point blank in the head to prove that he's a Terminator, and that was cut as well? She goes back to her gun running mates, and they don't believe her. Obviously, they don't.
Yeah.
I brought this cyborg from the future with us. What?
Uncle Bob.
I'll prove it. I'm gonna shoot him. Yeah. I'm sure that was a scene where they shot it point blank in the head. But yeah, it's interesting to see the amount of imagination that goes in. And this is the guy whose first job was Piranha 2. And he got sacked for that. And why was he sacked from Piranha 2? Because he tried to make it better. He built the Piranhas, I think, and they actually kicked him out. He was in the editing suite. And I think, I can't remember the name of the Italian director. They booted him out. And he said, yes, he was just trying to make it better. He was just trying to make it a better film.
How dare you, James?
Credited on it.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, stop it. It's a bag of shit, and you know it is. But what a great director. And I was reading up on Terminator 2 and the whole Terminator franchise for this anyway, and his sort of reluctance with Terminator 3 was never, ever interested. I think even Arnie tried to sweet talk him around to doing it. I think even he knows that it's done. It's finished.
Yeah.
And I think it's sort of proven its point now that it's just not. I watched Dark Fate and it was okay, but it just doesn't stand up. It just doesn't have the same epic scale to it, the same feel to it, the same pacing to it. It sort of loses a lot. I mean, it's the same fucking story.
It's a retread
over
of
again,
this one,
isn't it?
really.
And it is, isn't it? And it's sometimes a bit of a lazy retread. But yeah, this is. I don't know. How rare can this be? Where you get someone who would completely take the sequel and run with it. Really, this is what I really wanted to do. I was only given $6.4 million on the first one. I could do a lot with $6.4 million, to be honest with you, but that's another story. But you give me $100 million, I'll show you the real Terminator movie I want to make, and that's what he did, and he did it. fucking hell, by the bucket lord, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But the special effects are fantastic. They're still fantastic. The one I always think stands out to me is the escape scene from Pescadero, and is as the T-1000 melts through the prison bars.
Oh, yeah.
And you
awesome.
sort of get to see the first time, and as he's stepping through, he stops, he's stuck. And oh shit, someone's fucked up. It's not, it's his handgun. His handgun's not part of him.
Yeah.
And even he looks really bemused by it, that's why didn't that happen? And it's really good. I just think it's a bit funny, and I think it just looks so realistic. Again, you've mentioned earlier on that the killing of the security guard, where it's melted into the floor, and it rises up from the floor to look to face to face, and then take on his form, and it's just really good. And it wouldn't work, it wouldn't have worked at all if they couldn't have done those cool special effects shots. I watched the making of it, where it showed you the T-1000 walking out of the flames of the wrecked trail after the chase through the storm drains. And it's, I think, if I want to be honest, it's the one that doesn't stand up as well, but it doesn't mean it's shit. It's sort of a little bit jerky in emotion, but I sort of let it go, because after all, it's a robot. I think that was, in if you want to be picky, you want to be picky and stick up for it. So, well, it's not human form. It's a cybernetic machine, really. So I can give it that. It's like the voice. Why has he got an Austrian accent? Well, he's not really. He's just they don't know how we talk. They haven't got anything. It's just got a robotic voice. It's just like, so that's why he says "fuck you, asshole,"
"fuck you, asshole,"
and things like that.
Yeah.
Your clothes, give them to me. Yeah, Sarah Connor, which I thought today is his best role ever.
It really is.
Better than Conan. Yeah, he's just suited down to the ground. I think it was just really well done. Both movies. It's just, what can he say? Terminator 2 is fantastic.
Yeah.
Is it better than his first one? Yeah, it probably is, to be honest with you. Is it better than the third one? Yeah.
Yeah.
The fourth, fifth, sixth, absolutely, yeah. Because they just left it alone. You never. Someone should sit down and think, can we top that? No, right. Let's just fucking leave it then, because there's no point in wasting everyone's time.
Yeah,
you're not going to top it. You'll never be as good as that. You'd need someone with Jim Cameron's vision and determination and enthusiasm for the story to take it any further forward, and that's not going to happen. You'll never get anything as good as Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
No, and the thing with T3, as you said, it's like a lazy retread of this one, and like it's a female Terminator this time who's sort of a bit more advanced than the T-1000, but pretty much does the same bloody thing. The only good thing about T3 is the ending. I thought the ending was really good. Like the real dour, downbeat ending where Judgment Day actually happens. That's pretty cool. But then, yeah, I mean, the thing with Dark Fate was, again, it's the same story. It's a retread of this one. It's just, I mean, spoilers, if you haven't seen Dark Fate, I'm sorry, but I'm going to spoil it. But spoilers, like John Connor gets murdered by a Terminator in the first couple of minutes. And they say, oh, yeah, it's because, Skynet sent back multiple Terminators at the same time. It's like, oh, really? Okay. And, but they tried to say, they always trying to say with Dark Fate, oh, well, it's all right because James Cameron's got something to do with this one. No, he hasn't. He hasn't really. It's that thing where they say executive produced by Quentin Tarantino. It's like, yeah, he's just put his name on it just to get people in. And it's like, and they've got, as part of the marketing, and using these quotes where, Jim Cameron saying, oh, it's the best Terminator film since Terminator 2. It probably is, but it doesn't mean it's that good. I mean, Dark Fate was okay, but they're just flogging this. They just need to leave it, and hopefully they are going to leave it now, because I think Dark Fate was going to be the first of a new trilogy, but it underperformed at the box office. So I think even the public now are getting a bit wise to it. It's like, oh, really? After Terminator Genesis, which I've never seen because it looks fucking awful and gave away pretty much the whole plot in the trailer. I never saw Genesis. I did go and see Dark Fate at the pictures because I was curious to see, because obviously it brings Linda Hamilton back. And this is that thing about retconning previous sequels, isn't it? Where, because Sarah Connor's dead in Terminator 3. She's died of cancer. Because Linda Hamilton didn't want to come back for T3. She was like, no, thank you. I mean, that should be a warning sign in itself that both Cameron and Linda Hamilton didn't come back for T3. But it's a whole retconning thing. All of a sudden, she's alive again. It's like, oh, we want you to completely disregard everything. It's like Terminator Dark Fate is the now official sequel to Terminator 2. And it's like, Oh god, it's at the end of the day, it's all about the money, isn't it? But yeah, I just really wish they'd have left it. They should have just left it well alone, shouldn't they? After this, because Terminator 2's got the perfect ending. It's it's the shot of the highway at night. Now saying that the future is open, and the great line of dialogue from Sarah where it says, if a machine can learn the value of human life, maybe we can too. And that's it. It's a great ending, and they really should have just left it there. They should have just left it there. But nah, it's a superb movie, and there's still loads of stuff we haven't talked about. But we could be here for another 2 hours talking about what we love about this movie. So we'll wrap up our second time lucky section there with a great sequel, Terminator 2, fantastic. If you haven't seen it for a while, just recommend that you go back and give it a cheeky rewatch, because it's absolutely brilliant.